Hello, I want to cover this problem. This one seems to be stumping a lot of people. It's 6 plus 6 times 0 with an exclamation mark at the end of the 0. What does that mean? 6 plus 6 times 0? Is that what it says? Let's think about this problem together. I'm seeing a lot of incorrect answers for a lot of weird reasons. All right, so first of all, let's talk about 0 with an exclamation mark. That is called a factorial. All right, and you may or may not have heard of that, depending on, what areas of mathematics you studied. Most people cover it at some point. But the other confusing part, and we're going to get into it, 0 factorial is equal to 1. It's not a 0. All right, and we'll talk about that. So first of all, what the heck is a factorial? I know a lot of people are going, what is that made up math? Well, it's been around, the exclamation mark has been used, I think, since about 1808. I think it was Christian Kramp. I'm not even sure. I think that was the name. The mathematician that came up with the use of the exclamation mark was over 200 years ago. So this is not new mathematics. In mathematics, a factorial is a way of multiplying a whole number by every positive whole number less than it down to 1. So it's written using an exclamation point. For example, 5 factorial, which is red, 5 factorial, means 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which equals 120. Well, think of it this way. It's a shorthand way of writing repeated multiplication. It's easier to write 5 with an exclamation mark than it is to write 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And I know a lot of people are going, well, why the heck would I want to write 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? Well, listen, factorials are defined only for non-negative integers, and they grow very quickly as the number increases. A special case, though, is 0 factorial, which is defined to be 1. And it may seem strange at first, but it makes many mathematical formulas work consistently, especially in counting and probability. Factorials are commonly used in combination math, basically, which is counting how many ways things can be arranged. Things like probability and algebra and even computer science use factorials. So, like if you're calculating permutations, combinations, or the number of possible outcomes in a system, if you're trying to count cars or you're trying to figure out the probability in some lottery or gambling situation, these come into play in the formulas for determining the number of possible outcomes. Um, so we'll just leave it at that. We're not going to go into a lot of detail. Just keep in mind that when you see the exclamation mark, it's a factorial, and 0 factorial is equal to 1. I could go into the weeds and explain why that is, but I'm not going to cover it in this video. I've got another video that actually goes more into factorials. So again, like I said, factorials are shorthand for repeated multiplication. All right? And we said that 0 factorial is equal to 1. So what we really got here is, what we really have is 6 plus 6 times 1. And what does that equal? Well, believe it or not, a lot of people get to this point and they still don't get it right. I'll go through that and explain it. But 6 times 1 is 36. You do not blindly solve left to right. Multiplication has precedence over addition and subtraction. So we got a couple things going on here. There's a couple concepts that people are missing. First of all is the factorials, which I can understand people forgetting the factorials. And a lot of those people are coming up with the answer of 6, and we're going to talk about that. But the answer is really 42. It's 6 plus 36 equals 42. Which, great, 42. That's the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. All right. If you don't get that reference, that's okay. If you watch movies, maybe you understand where I'm going with that. But anyhow, 6 is a common incorrect answer from those who forgot or do not understand what a factorial is. But at least they understand the order of operations except for the factorial. So I can understand how a lot of people are missing the exclamation mark and getting a 6. Where it starts to get a little strange, though, are a lot of the people who are answering 0. 0 is a common incorrect answer from those who forgot or do not understand what a factorial is, but also do not understand the order of operations. All right? Let's look at it this way. We already said 6 plus 6 times 6 times 0 factorial is 42. The people getting 0 have to understand you need to have parentheses around this. 6 plus 6 times 6 needs to all be in parentheses and then multiplied by 0 to get 0. Those people getting 0 have completely forgotten the fact that multiplication has got priority. You first have to calculate 6 times 6 times 0, right? If let's ignore the factorial for a minute. Let's pretend it's not there. It would be 6 times 6 times 0, which is equal to 0. And then you're left with 6 plus 0, which equals 6. So 0 is really completely wrong. You can't tell me that 6 plus 6 times 0 is equal to 0, and then tell me that this is also equal to 0 when I put parentheses around this. All right? There's an inconsistency there. Go think about it and then come back and try again. 72 is another answer I've seen, which to me is simply a disturbing answer, and it indicates a lack of understanding of multiplication by 0. All right, and I've had people argue this one to no end, and I've made a complete video. I've made a couple videos on multiplication by 0, and some of you might be shaking your head and you're telling me, what? What are you talking about? Believe it or not, there's a frightening number of adults who do not understand how to multiply by 0. I have a link to the video about that in the description, so if you're one of the people that are making this argument, I'm going to simply say, stop using the argument, folks, the ones that don't understand. I keep hearing this all the time. Well, if I have 10 apples or if I have 10 pencils and I multiply those 10 pencils by 0, I still have my 10 pencils. That statement right there explains to me that you don't understand the difference between multiplication and addition. And I'm going to leave it at that, all right? If you think that, look for the video I have on multiplication by 0. Please, please, please. All right, so I hope this helps out. If you see these problems again, these things show up on Facebook a lot with the exclamation mark. Just keep in mind they're a factorial. If you see one that says 5 factorial, hey, we already know it's 120, right? So good to go. All right, I hope the video has been helpful. If it has, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.